Your angels are speaking to you. Do you hear them? Welcome to The Calling of Light with author and empathic spiritual tarot reader Ann Marie Odell. The Calling of Light offers direct, empathic insight and relatable spiritual topics, interviews with special spiritual guests, and straight talk call-in readings. Kick back and enjoy free-form spirit tea with Ann Marie, the way you like it best when you want to simplify. Here is your host, Ann Marie Odell.
I'm Ann Marie, and you are listening to The Calling of Light on Om Times Radio. My guest today is Dr. Rima Bonario, who embraces sacred feminine sovereignty, an author, teacher, energy healer, and soul coach. Now, there's a lot of questions I had to ask about what exactly is sovereignty? Where on the scale is a queen, as her book is The Seven Queendoms, who helps us search for our personal queen archetype. There are 7 of them. Rima holds a doctorate in transformation psychology and has studied with master teachers in shamanic shadow work, body-based energy work, sacred sexuality, and tantra. Rima is the creator of Bloom Fine Egyptian oils, and she loves initiating women into the use of these high vibration oils and the ancient practice of self-anointing. Today, she is coming to discuss her new book, which is The Seven Queendoms, all about finding which queen archetype you are. She has a very fun test in the book, which you will have to check out. So here she is. Thank you for being a part of my show today, Rima.
I'm glad to be with you today.
Tell me about the test that you encourage.
And so I'm very proud to be an author with Flower of Life. And as you know, the book is called The Seven Queendoms, a soul map for embodying sacred feminine sovereignty. And what happened for me as I was on my journey to explore how I could be more sovereign in my own life, I discovered...
Okay, I'm going to first of all ask you to give me a definition of what sovereign means.
Yeah, that's great. That's always a good place to start. So sovereignty is really defined as being in a state of absolute authority and free from outside influence so that we can be in true self-governance. And, you know, a lot of us have grown up in households and in our culture where it's all about bending to outside influence. And we don't feel that we have complete authority over our lives. And very much as women, we often feel there's additional external outside influence on our sovereignty where we don't feel completely allowed to be in self-governance. And so this work to actually drop in and focus on what is our inner authority, what is our inner connection to our soul, to our higher self, to our divine self, that is the place where we really need to be taking our direction from, rather than all the external influences in life. And that's really the gist of this work, is going inward to discover our own personal queendoms. And it's a big job, you know, it's a big job to do that excavating.
It's discipline, isn't it? Self-discipline.
Well, that's one aspect of it for sure. And as I was doing that work, I discovered that it made sense for me to break it up into smaller chunks. And that's why there are 7 different queendoms. And when you go take the quiz that you were referring to, that's available on my website at rimabonario.com, the quiz will help you in a sort of fun way identify which of those queens you feel most comfortable with, which one feels most like home to you, which one is the one that you're really doing well in that domain of life. And it's useful as you go through the process, because when you get through, we'll send you a packet all about that queen, and you can really dive in and learn more about the one that's, super meaningful for you. Then when we go deeper in the work, we start to look at the queens that we're not as connected to, the ones that we aren't doing as well with, the areas of life that are still a bit of a mystery for us, or a bit of a, balls up, if you want to call it that. And then that also provides a doorway for greater healing, because we can start to pay attention to the areas that really need our support.
Can you please explain to me what the queens are, the seven queens? Or
Yeah, so each queen oversees a particular area of sovereignty. And if you start at they're also loosely aligned to the 7 chakras in the body, if you're familiar with the chakra system.
Sure.
So that's kind of a useful, another useful framework to hold. We'll start with the grounded queen, who sits at the base of the body, and she oversees physical sovereignty. So everything in our physical lives, are we being well cared for? Do we feel abundant? Do we feel that we have the right to exist on the planet? Do we feel safe? Really is her domain. Then we move.
Is she the queen that would represent the princess, the Jewish princess kind? Would she be somebody that needs a lot of money and needs a lot of comfort in her physical world, or the movie star, so to be?
Well, she is the queen that helps us recognize that we are allowed to have a positive experience in the 3D realm. Like, we're allowed to be well cared for in whatever way that looks for us. Some people prefer an abundance of time versus an abundance of money. Other people prefer an abundance of luxury experiences. Some people prefer an abundance of love. And, we get to be the queen of our lives. So we get to determine where we want to put our attention and what we want to grow. We get to have all of those things in various measures, and so that's part of the physical domain. But generally speaking, it's the hardest area for us to work in. And so when I teach with my students, we actually come in the opposite direction than the way I'm going to go with you. And we can have some fun exploring why that's better, or why that's different. I won't say necessarily better, but different, to come at the queens from the opposite direction. But this one, the grounded queen, she's so important because so much of our life that we experience, the comforts, the joys, are very much tied to our physical experience on the planet. So we move a little further up into the system, and we come in contact with the passionate queen. And the passionate queen, her domain is our sexual sovereignty. And, how well are we seated in the throne of our own sexual self and our sensuality? Or do we find that the way we interact with the world in terms of our use of our sexual energy is really more about trying to meet some external guidepost, and so sometimes people have a lot of trauma in their sexual center, and they have had a lot of bad experiences, and it's important to take the time to go and look at our history, our sexual history, and begin to do the healing work around releasing some of those old experiences.
Can I add something here?
Yeah, of course.
Many women, that when they reach the age of 50-ish, and the pheromones are gone, reach the invisible queen. They become invisible. They're still sexual. They're still feeling that they're sexy, but the pheromones aren't there wafting out like lilting flowers to men. And often women that go to the gym that are just amazingly attractive say, well, what's going on here? I'm the queen of my sexuality. I'm still feeling sexual. Why? But then if these queens of their sexuality have somehow all of their lives determined that their sexuality is not about how they feel inside, but how the opposite sex is perceiving them, do these queens become lost?
This is such an important topic. We could spend a whole show on this alone, really. For me, the important thing is to recognize there are things we can do to be more seen. And I have felt sexier in my life since turning 50. I'm 55 now than I ever have in my whole life. And part of that was because I too had things that needed to be addressed in my sexual center before I started doing this work. In fact, it was one of the main reasons I got into doing this work is that my relationship with my husband was beautiful in so many areas, but we had some struggles in our intimate life. And I needed to go and learn about my body and learn about ancient tantric practices and learn about my sexuality as an extension of my life force energy, that I own that belongs to me, that I'm the generator of that. And it's not being generated by somebody else out there. I can enjoy somebody enjoying me, but it's my pleasure that I receive at enjoying them enjoying me that's creating it. It's not them that's creating it. So I get to do whatever I want to with that energy. I don't have to give it to them. I don't have to be open to a sexual experience because somebody is wanting that from me. I can take the charge that I get from their desire and I can put it into my own physical body, my health. I can put it into my painting, my creativity, my entrepreneurial work. I can make my skin glow with it, So these are things that we get to be in charge of when we are really sitting in the sovereignty of our passionate queen, where we recognize that our passion is for ourselves first and foremost, and for others after. And sometimes that idea gets damaged as we grow up, and we're told that our sexuality and our sexual beingness is really for the enjoyment of others.
Right. And what is the next queen?
So then we move up into the empowered queen, and she helps us with our energetic sovereignty. And this is a new concept for most people, this idea that you can have energetic sovereignty. Like, what does that mean? I had no idea I had an energy body for most of my life. And I didn't understand certainly that my energy body.
Can you describe that? What your term of the energy body is?
So an energy body is just the part of our body that exists in energetic form. Quantum science has been showing us that reality, what we think of as reality that feels like firm to the touch, is really just sets of overlapping energy fields that our brains perceive as the stuff we call matter. But all of that exists primarily as energy first. And we're learning as we grow as a species how to interact with physical reality at the level of energy. Now, a lot of ancient traditions have known this for a long time. You have energy medicine in Eastern medicine. They've always worked with the body at the energetic level through meridians and acupuncture, acupressure, through working with the chakra system, like the chakras themselves are part of our energy body. We also have energetic roots that connect us into the earth, very much like trees have roots, physical roots. We have energetic roots. We have an energetic core on the inside of our body that helps us stay firm and in ourselves. But if we don't know it's there, we can't work with it. We have an edge to our auric field. We have an energetic field that our body generates. We ourselves are electromagnetic energy fields with an in pole and an out pole. So we have polarity. All of these things are useful for us to learn because it helps us interact with ourselves and the world in a more masterful way. And I go into this in great detail actually in the book, and certainly in all of my coursework as well, because we need to take on practices that allow us to begin interacting with these parts of our bodies. Just like we bathe every day to take care of our physical body, we have techniques and hygiene, energetic hygiene that we should be participating in.
Energetic hygiene. I like that.
Yeah. And
that's a cool term.
And it helps us to not spill out our energy out on other people or have our energy, impinged on by others when we're doing the work to make sure our space is nice and clean and clear.
I like it. So what's next?
So then we move to the loving queen. She sits in the heart, and her job is to support us with emotional sovereignty. So we're really working on the right to love and be loved here, and to do that in a way that includes ourself, that the focus is really on self-acceptance first, self-love, self-devotion. You can't give away what you don't have. And so a lot of the times we think we're loving people. We're not actually in the energy of love. We are in the energy of transaction. I'll do this for you, you do this for me, and then everybody will feel love.
So it's actually a power struggle.
It can descend into a power struggle for sure. One of the big challenges that women face is that, because we've been conditioned into this, is that we're supposed to have a focus on the other. And so I will do for you, I will take care of you, I will track you, I will give to you, and then you are supposed to do all those things for me.
Right.
But rarely do we find ourselves in a situation where that exchange is equal. And part of the problem is it's flawed in the very nature of the arrangement. That if we instead think about ourselves as a well, and our job is to fill ourselves up with self-love, with self-devotion, with all of these things that we tend to ourselves until the well is overflowing. And then we give from this place of luscious overflow. And now when I give, I don't have to wait for you to give back to me. I'm not giving to get. And it's not transactional, it's free, it's full of, it's free of all of the strings that are attached when we're giving from a place of emptiness and a place of lack. And
that's very interesting, because I spent much of my morning reading for women who came from a space of love, but it was in drought. It was an emotional drought. And they were giving and giving and giving to all the wrong people who were taking and taking and taking until they were completely dry. And the problem was they become so lost and they're loving queens, but they're women that have not allowed the well to grow, like you say. They just keep in a state of drought.
Yeah, and they're missing loving the most important person in their life, which is themselves. Right. And we're not very masterful at that, because we haven't had good models of that. We haven't seen what that looks like. We've been told that that's selfish, and somehow we're supposed to be selfless. And that's not my perspective. My perspective is that when we become self-sovereign and we have filled our love tank, now we get to give with just this incredible open-hearted experience. And the people who receive our love that's offered that way feel so amazingly well loved, because they don't feel this underlying
anxiety.
They don't feel this pull that's happening, that you're trying to get something back. And so people will often reject that kind of love, because they can feel, no, this is sticky. There's something else going on here that doesn't feel good to me. And so we're not really being a loving queen in that way. Each of these queens has two shadow queens where we can flip into being not enough of the actual queen itself, or we can be too much of that queen. And so if we're using love inappropriately too much, we can become what I call the sacrificial queen. That's what these ladies
are doing. The martyr.
And then we get bitter and resentful and angry, and we blame the people we're supposed to be loving.
And we turn into dark bitches.
Yes, of course. Right?
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose: to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hi, my name is Ann Marie Odell, and thank you for inviting me in for Tarot and Coffee. I offer 37 plus years of accurate, honest tarot channeling. Spirit comes through me as a feeling, an inner knowing. I call it the angel frequency. As you say your first name, I close my eyes and shuffle my well-worn card as I go into a deep calm. By phone, Skype, or Zoom, contact me at thecallingoflight.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And we're back with Rima Bonario on her book, Seven Queendoms.
Okay, so then we go to the expressive queen, and she's all about how we give our medicine to the world, our dharma, the way we express in the world. And she's here to help us actually use our voice and to be in a state of truth. And so we have to be in truth with ourselves before we can be in truth with other people. You know, if we're not telling ourselves the truth, then the things that come out of our mouth may seem true, but they might not actually be our deepest truth.
So because she's the queen of truth, does she sometimes come off very intense?
Yes.
And create fear that people that go, why do I feel like I'm so intimidated? Why is there so much truth coming from her?
Sometimes that's when you get into the shadow of the expressive queen. I call her the starring queen. She needs to be on the stage for everybody. Yes, she's the one who's like, she's not really actually in true relationship with people because she holds herself apart. She stands up on the stage and tries to tell everybody how she sees it. And it's not a place of mutual vulnerability. So it comes off as this, you know, harsh and very distant approach. The opposite end of that is when we silence ourselves and we become the silent queen, and we're too frightened to speak up or to share our truth, even with ourselves.
Sounds very Michael Jacksonish. You know, it's that I would say that there's a lot of diva queens out there that have that exact opposite, where they are complete antisocial introverts.
Yeah, we can ping pong back and forth between these two wounded states because it feels too scary to be completely honest with ourselves and others.
Right. So we are back, and we are going to hear about the rest of the queens. That would leave us, we are at the Diva Queen last chapter.
Well, yes, the expressive queen. Yes.
The expressive queen, the Diva Queen. And the next one would be?
Moving up, we come into the visionary queen, and she oversees mental sovereignty. So our thought processes and how we see the world, whether or not we're stymied by illusion, stuck in illusion, or whether we're able to see clearly. And the visionary queen, she's so helpful because her job is to really catch ourselves when we're believing our own stuff too much, you know, our own bullcrap. And so she helps us get through and clear through all of that If we're too much in our thought processes, though, we can become the arrogant queen, the one who's the know-it-all.
Interesting.
And then if we're
I'm still trying to figure out which is the healer queen, the queen that heals.
The queen that heals is the loving queen. Her archetype is healer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This one's archetype is the oracle, the seer,
oracle,
who's able to see things with truth, see things clearly. And when we get to the last one and then we go back in the opposite direction, you're going to watch how this comes together in a really powerful way. So the visionary queen is very important because she helps us get clarity in how we're seeing the world, and you have to see things right before you can make them right. So one of my mentors taught me that, and it's very true. And then the final queen is the divine queen. And she helps oversee our spiritual sovereignty. And this is so important because everything starts here. And if we've had spiritual trauma in the past, if we've had religious abuse in our history, or we've been inside of a particular faith tradition that has as part of its tenets that we are supposed to be.
What religious abuse is. What is religious abuse?
Well, I consider abuse to be anything that damages the sense of self, anything that damages our healthy sense of who we are. So I have a doctorate in transformational psychology, and one of the things that we see a lot are people that come into therapeutic environments because they've been wounded. They've been wounded by their past life experiences, and they need some support to heal. And we can get wounded from religious messaging and religious dogma, that if that dogma has been taught to us in a way that tells us that who we are is not pleasing to whatever we consider the divine to be, that we are bad, that we are intrinsically and inherently flawed. This is a base idea in many.
Oh yeah, I remember going to church in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, and the first thing that we had to say basically in any kind of before chant was basically on the "Dear Lord, I'm a piece of crap, forgive me."
Yeah.
And it was like, really? That's when I stopped going. It was like, are you kidding me?
Yes. Well, many people, it takes them a long time to get out from under that spell, and what we are is human. What we are is human in that we are imperfect. However, we are not just human. We are also an extension of the divine. We are also filled with brilliance and light and beauty and grace. And the divine queen is the place that helps us connect with that part of ourselves, what I like to call the deepest, truest part of myself. I call her my soul, and she appears to me as feminine, and it doesn't have to be that way. Some people like the term higher self, and that part of us is the place where we can receive clear guidance from a deeper truth that is within. And here's how we start to get ourselves really engaged in our queendom effectively. Once we've read about all the queens, then we start to work with the queens. And when I work with the queens in my live coursework, we start here with the divine queen, which is at the crown or the top of the system, the top of the energetic system, so that we can drop in and we go through exercises that help us develop a relationship to that inner queen, that divinity within. And once we can hold that perspective of bringing the whole point, I believe, of being on earth is to bring the divine here and bring it into the body. That's how we make heaven on earth. And so once we have that perspective well connected in at the crown level, this is where we start as queens, then it becomes easier to use that divine queen perspective to look out of our eyes and stay in our visionary queen experience and have the illusions be dispelled. So we can see, well, of course, I have a right to know that I am an extension of the divine. So of course, I have a right to see clearly. So then, of course, moving into my expressive queen in my throat, of course, I have the right to speak in here truth. And then we come into the heart. Of course, I have the right to love and be loved from this divine perspective. And we want to bring divine love to ourselves and to the world. And then, of course, I have the right to be my particular differentiated self that sits in the empowered queen. I have a right to my power, and I will wield my power with grace and love, bringing all of these queens with me into my power. And then, of course, I have the right to my needs, wants, and desires, and to be generative in my sexual center and my life force energy, and to be responsible in how I use my sexual energy and how I use it for myself. And then finally, we come back to the grounded queen. Of course, I have a right to exist. And of course, I have the right to be well cared for. I am an extension of the divine on earth, just like the flowers and the birds and the trees. We are all here to be joyfully expressing, and there's sun and there's water and there's light, and all these things are here for us to use and to be gifts to the world through our beauty, through our joy, through our connection with others.
You have a beautiful website. What is it again?
It's rimabonario.com.
And the name of your book is?
The Seven Queendoms, a soul map for embodying sacred feminine sovereignty. And that's available on Amazon. If you just go on there and search for the Seven Queendoms, you'll find it. You can come to my website as well, but it's going to just bounce you back to Amazon to purchase the book. However, on my website, there's a lot of fun stuff on there, some free things, free gifts, as well as the Seven Queendoms quiz.
So when as a child, were you quirky? Were you a different child?
I was a little quirky. I tell this story in the book because, the first part of the book is really all about how I landed in this work. And it starts by understanding, our childhood. Our childhood is so much a part of the person that we have become, whether we've continued in the path that we started as a childhood or we had to work against it. Either way, it shapes us. And I grew up in a family where my father was the primary power figure. My mom was very disempowered. And so
probably a good Catholic family too.
Yes,
right?
Of course. Right. So I became a tomboy, and was kind of a tough girl and not girly at all. But also there were girly aspects. I loved to play with my Barbies. My mom made me the most exquisite Barbie clothes.
Wow.
They were always fashion plates. She was amazing in that way.
I hear there's a new Queen Barbie out, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to get one of those. Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Sure. So, growing up was a challenge in some ways, not feeling safe in my home environment. There was a lot of physical reprimanding that went on in my home life, and a lot of emotional dialogue. And, I'd probably have to call it emotional abuse at some level. That the idea was that, as we were talking about, to be a good person, you needed to put yourself down, you needed to tear yourself down, and that somehow if you tore yourself apart and tore yourself down, then you'd be a better person in life. And I don't see it working that way. We do need to remember that we're not the only one that matters, but we want to come from the perspective of, when I love myself well, I'm actually able to love others better. So I was a bit odd in that sense. And
no, wait. Where did the oddness come in, though? I don't know.
Well, because I went to school and I was, my brother was 2 years older than me, and he was a bit more of a sensitive soul. And so, he was getting picked on, and there I was standing in front of those boys, with my hands on my hips. And
the queen.
I was trying to be a superwoman, actually. I talk about this, that I was too much in my masculine energy, actually. I was trying to be a better boy than the boys. Yep. And eventually when I hit puberty, that just it became difficult because I couldn't get any traction with boys, I wanted to have a boyfriend, and I had crushes, and
you became intimidating.
Well, my energy read like a boy. It didn't read like a girl.
Yeah.
And that was a revelation to me. And, I took that into my life my whole life. I was a strong personality and a go-getter and a make things happen, which is all masculine energy. And we all have both of those energies in us. And there's nothing wrong with masculine energy.
No.
We need it, but it shouldn't be in charge. The feminine is capable of going in and finding that still point within that is connected to the divine. And this is the problem we have on the planet right now, is that all of our, as a community, as a family, all of our masculine energy is leading. And all it wants to do is to vanquish and to be the victor and to take a lot of action.
Very testosterone.
Well, it's more than just physical. It's energetic. It's desire.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Yes. Its desire is to penetrate and to make things happen. And so it's doing that without clear guidance. So we have a lot of stuff that's happening in the world that's not coming from our connection to the deepest part of ourselves. We have to go through the doorway of the feminine energy, which moves inward, and connect deeply first with, what are we doing here? What do we want to create? How do we want to live together as a human family? The healer, the lover, the part of us that wants to be connected and share. And once we connect to that, it changes the way we do. And this is why I'm so passionate about this work right now. Women have a little more easeful access to feminine energy because of our physical bodies. They're designed to work more easily with feminine energy. We have the plumbing, if you will, that draws inward. And when we as the group can become more masterful at holding our feminine energy as the leader energy, it's changing the world. It's changing the way it's changing the field of energy in which everyone lives. And as that energy field changes, we start to see shifts in the physical world. And right now we've got a lot of conflict happening because these two energies are sort of duking it out, if you will, right now.
I have an interesting part to add to that. My son is CEO of a natural food store in Oregon. All of the male people in the loader department left because there was a better job down the road. He said that was so traumatic because all of the young men that he interviewed either did not show up or they did not take it seriously enough and left. The entire corporation now is